going to start talking about our essential tools and materials we are going to need for one, to begin knitting, and the essential things that we will need for our pattern. And before we do that, I would like you to please go print out your pattern, and that way you can take any little notes on here if you'd like to. And also, please go ahead and print out your abbreviations sheet that I will put a link to in the bottom. I will put a link to this in the bottom. And then grab a paper and a pen, because we are going to talk about the things you're going to need for this pattern that we're creating, as well as things that you can get along the way. So go ahead and go print that out, and you can pause the video if you need to. But let's go ahead and start talking about the tools that I use. This is pretty much it. I mean, there's some other tools that I use, but not very often. The first thing you're going to need, the absolute essential, is knitting needles. So I would highly suggest going on Amazon, getting a bag of these Lee-Howe. I think that's how you say it. There's a bag of 36 pieces in here. They're cheap. They're great for starting out. If they're a little bit snaggy with your fibers, just take a fine piece of sandpaper and just gently sand the tips of them, which I have done with, these are my cheaper ones here. And I just have sanded the tips a little bit to make them nice and smooth in any places they were catching on the yarn. Now, these fancy guys here, I have waited a very long time for, like 3 or 4 years, because, well, I just used my cheapos for a long time. They worked fine. But after using these, oh my gosh, it's like knitting with little pieces of heaven. So, I mean, as you can tell here, the tips are a little more pointy. It's a smooth surface. They're just great to knit with. These are from Knitter's Pride. There's tons of good ones. Knit Picks also has some really nice ones. They were actually out of stock. I was going to get the matching set to these, which are my circulars, but we'll talk about that in a minute. For our pattern, you are going to need a 10-inch or 9-inch set of number 8s. Now, number 8s are also 5 millimeters. Same. US 8, UK 5 millimeter. So you're gonna need those. That's the essential. Like I said, totally, if you want to go and get a single set of needles because you're not sure if knitting is for you, Joann's and Michael's sells them, and you can pick them up at the curbside right now during this quarantine. As well as getting this bundle. I mean, I think it's $4 for a single pair, and you can get this for like 11 or 12 bucks. So you can get a whole set. Might as well just do it. But I understand shipping could be weird right now. So number 8 is fine for right now. You are definitely going to need your needles, a stitch or a row counter. You are going to need a needle, which is, this is just a sewing needle. It's a blunt end. This is for weaving in our ends at the end of the project. These are stitch markers. I don't know that we'll be using them, but they're good to have. Scissors and some sort of measuring tape. I would suggest a longer one. This is just my sewing one for visual purposes. Yeah, so you're going to need that. Some additional things that I have and use are my circular needles. These are what I use when I'm doing hats and things that are round. Now this is round. Our pattern is a coffee cup sleeve, but we're actually sewing this at the end. It's not going to be knitted in a circle. So these eliminate the need to sew your project at the end. So I've got, these are my Knit Picks. I love Knit Picks. They're high quality. They're just as good as my Knitter's Pride needles. And I got a set here. They're interchangeable. I would wait to get these until you know if you are going to stick with knitting. I think these are close to $50. My Knitter's Pride straight needles, I think were 60 or 70. I think they were 70. There is a difference in size of needles. There are longer needles. These are 14-inch in length. These are 14. My standard ones are like around 9 or 10. You don't need these 14-inch. Honestly, I don't know that I've even ever used them. I don't make a lot of big blankets and things like that, but if blankets and huge cowls and things like that are going to be something you want to do, totally get a set of these two. These are the cheap ones. Again, I think they were like 15 bucks on Amazon. So, as far as circular needles go, if you would like to start out with cheapo ones, there again, Amazon comes in, saves the day. eBay has them too, whatever. There is another way of knitting in the round, and that is with double pointed needles. And you'll actually have certain projects as you get more advanced that need double pointed needles versus circular or whatever. They're very intimidating to look at, but I promise you, it's actually really fun once you get the hang of it. So you would divide your stitches. Let's say we're knitting in a circle here. You would put like 10 stitches here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. And then you're working, whoops, well, we'll just use 3 for this purposes. And then you would use your working needle here, okay? But this is just for knitting in a circle. Same thing as what these do, just in a different method, okay? You don't have to have these for this project. If you decide that you do this project and you want to move on to more advanced things and creating little projects that do involve knitting in the round is what that is called, then go ahead and get you some cheap double pointed needles. Challenge your brain, learn how to use them. I know you'll want to like gouge your eyes out for a little while. I did, because they made me very mad, but then I learned how to use them and I love them. So I'm going to put this stuff away and we are going to talk about yarn and yarn fibers and yarn brands. And then I would also really quick like to tell you, for your pattern here, we are going to need worsted weight yarn, which is a number 4, and you will see that on your skein of yarn. This is a skein, that's what it's called. It tells you the weight. It tells you the size knitting needle or crochet needle or crochet hook that you need, how many yards are in there, and what the material is, and how to wash it. So anything you need to know is on your skein of yarn. Get cheap stuff. You're gonna screw up. You're gonna have to rip it all out. You're gonna have holes. You're gonna make knots. So just get the cheap stuff for this project, okay? I mean, get a color you like and that makes you happy, but totally don't go and buy a $15 skein of 100% pure alpaca, Peruvian wool, or whatever, okay? So you're gonna need number 4 yarn. You're gonna need a yarn needle for weaving inner ends and scissors, and that's it. And then of course your pattern. So print your pattern and let's meet back here and we will discuss our yarn.